from the heart of Dubai, where tomorrow is being built today, to the world. Welcome to the CTO Show with Mehmet. Here, we redefine technology and reimagine possibilities. With Mehmet, delve into the riveting realms of AI, cybersecurity, and digital technology. Experience the thrilling highs and lows of startups. Immerse yourself in the spirit of entrepreneurship and witness the future of business innovation being written in real time. Now, without further ado, let's tune in and explore the future.
Hello and welcome back to an episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today, I'm very pleased. Joining me, John Cousins. John, thank you very much for joining me here today. The way I love to do it, I keep it to my guests to introduce themselves. Tell us a bit more about you, your journey, and what you're currently up to, and then we're going to take the discussion from there. So the floor is yours, John.
That sounds great, Mehmet, and thanks. A pleasure to be here. Hi, everybody watching. Let me start with basically the arc of my career. I started out as a electrical engineer, and I went to MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology in the United States, and studied electrical engineering. And I went to Boston University and studied. I ended up with an independent major in electronic music and media production. And my original career, they say nowadays, everybody has on average 9 careers, and I probably had a little bit more. I'm on the long tail on the upside of that. But I was very interested in music and pop music and rock and roll. And so I wanted to work in recording studios and things. I started out working for an electronic music firm that made synthesizers. And from there, I got involved with one of the original makers of synthesizers, Bob Moog, the Moog synthesizer, and into recording studios. I weaseled my way into those and started making records. And from there, I was in Boston at the time, went to New York and worked for an equipment manufacturer at one of the early Silicon Valley companies. I got introduced to Silicon Valley, called Ampex. They invented basically magnetic tape and made audio and video machines for the professional market, for television networks, for recording studios, for broadcast, for radio, and worked for them as a marketing person and technical marketing person, and troubleshooting and fixing the machines in the field. And that was a great experience. So from there, I went to ABC, which was the broadcast network back when there were just 3 networks in the United States, and worked as an audio video systems engineer, designing and building facilities for the network and putting on big broadcasts, the Super Bowls and Monday Night Football and Olympics and political conventions, space shuttle launches and landings, all kinds of fun stuff. And that was in my 20s. And then I decided I really needed to understand. I was at the top of my technical career, basically, and everyone ahead of me was, 20 years older. I was in my mid-20s. They were in their mid-40s, 50. They weren't going anywhere for 10, 20 years. So I could see that there wasn't a lot of room for advancement. And I was starting to chafe at working for big companies. So I decided to go back to business school. I bailed out and went back to B school and went to Wharton, the business school at Penn, University of Pennsylvania. And that school was just great. I mean, that was a place for what they call quant jocks, quantitative people. And engineers are considered quant jocks, the numbers folks, because Wharton, specializes in finance. So that's what I went. And instead of going to a business school and studying the case study method, where you get a case and then you write it out, it's more narrative and language based, and, thinking in those ways, like Harvard, Stanford, Wharton is sort of the place where quantitative folks go to, flex. And so I went there and really liked that. I decided I went there because I wanted to become an entrepreneur. And I chafed at working at companies. I wanted to be my own person. I had been pushing the state of the art in technology for broadcasting and recording, and watching these companies that I'd work with, production, the producers would say they wanted to have this or that type of new technical innovation. I would try to build it in-house or take it to companies and have companies build it. And then they would end up selling a whole bunch of those things. And I thought, wow, I'd like to capture those ideas and sell them and capture that value more than just being, a worker. So those are my ideas. I also really what happened too. I was at ABC and I picked up the annual report, and the glossy annual report talking about the company's financial position, what was going on, and looked at the financial statements, balance sheet, income statement, and cash flow statement, and realized I don't know what these things mean. They're just all these rows of numbers, but I really don't understand them. I better go and learn how to understand these things because I could sense that it was an important piece of the puzzle as far as understanding how to work in business and how business works. And so that was another reason I went back to business school, and I sure learned those things. And from there, I became an entrepreneur. I started, after Wharton, I started about a dozen, maybe 15 companies now. Um, Took two of them public and ran those public companies. Those were my big exits. I had sort of when you think of a portfolio of companies, and some of them are abject failures, some of them kind of chug along, and some of them took off. And the public companies was a big exit for me. That was where I could a liquidity event where I could have my get my convert my equity into cash money. And I ran those companies for about 15 years as CFO, Chief Financial Officer, and CEO, Chief Executive Officer. Learned a lot. Yeah, believe me, a lot of learning along the way, a lot of bruises and scars to show for it, but a lot of, successes and triumphs too, which is part of the entrepreneurial experience, right? And from there, my sister was teaching uh, finance in the evening. She was a financial person teaching finance in a university, and I thought that's so cool. I'd love to interact with students and tell them about and brush up on my knowledge from an academic standpoint. So I started looking around it and got a couple of appointments teaching in the evenings and things to universities and colleges, and realized that the textbooks are this thick and they're filled with information, 800 pages on finance or accounting or marketing, and the marketing book might be 15 years old, going through editions and really not up to date on the technical aspects of digital marketing. And as I was teaching, I realized that the students really didn't have a context. They couldn't see the forest through the trees. They had all this information, these giant books, but they didn't know what was fundamental and important and what was sort of maybe intellectually interesting or from an academic standpoint, but not something you'd encounter every day in your career. And so from there, I started teaching in what was a novel way of here's the fundamentals. Here's the stuff I use every day from my experience, going for an MBA and then, actually in the real world and applying those things, and could boil it down to 20 pages and maybe a PowerPoint, with 20 slides. And my students were like, I could see the light bulbs go off. I could see them understand it. It's like, I've had 5 courses in accounting and I never understood really what a balance sheet was at essence. I'd ask them at the beginning, what's a balance sheet? And they panic like deer in the headlights, and say, debits, credits, they just start throwing out words, I realize, oh, you really don't have a clear idea of what these things are. So from there, I
Right.
started to create books, and then the technology caught up with me too, where I could disseminate information just like this, the internet, all over the world, and started to record my lectures and uploading them to platforms where I could create courses out of those. Creating books that I publish on Amazon through Kindle Direct Publishing, where they publish the books just off of a Word file, and they have a cover creator, and suddenly I could be selling books. And from there, I started my business now because I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I'm always thinking about what kind of problem I see and problem that I've encountered, and then trying to solve that problem in some way. And so my thing I'm doing now is called MBA ASAP, Master of Business Administration course material, ASAP, as soon as possible. So just distilled down to the essences of all the different disciplines, from marketing to strategy to negotiations to entrepreneurship to corporate finance, accounting, all those kind of things put together so that people can understand the information quickly and apply it right away in their lives, and all delivered digitally. So I have no my business model. I don't have any money tied up in inventory or working capital. So it's just basically creating these products, and then my variable costs and fixed costs of marketing, and realizing too that, actually creating, I've published 63 books, and people are like, wow, 63 books. How could you do that? Writing the books is the easy part. Marketing is the hard part, is what I've discovered. It's really challenging to do. So it's like the John Wanamaker was one of the famous first in Philadelphia. He had one of the first department stores, and he said famously, half of my marketing budget is wasted. The problem is I don't know which half. And that's really the kind of thing. It's even with digital metrics and things, it's still difficult to figure out what's really working and what's attributable to what ad or something like that, and what's not. So I found that quite challenging, but also quite fun. The creative part of marketing, and marketing is super fun, and it's kind of gamified these days. You can actually, because you can look at the metrics and say, oh, this had this amount of impact, that had that amount of impact, and it's kind of like a game where you try to get to the next level in Mario Brothers or something.
John, like, what a fantastic journey, what a fantastic experience. A lot of the things you mentioned resonated even with me also as well. And what you just mentioned about, financial literacy, like understanding money, understanding management, and coming from a engineer background myself, now I said, oh my God, like, why I didn't learn what I know now at a younger age, right? And the question that comes, and this I want to ask you, John, like, almost now everyone knows that these things should be basics, but till now we don't see these things in our educational systems. I have a lot of friends in the US, they tell me the same. I live in Dubai, I know it's the same. I have friends in Japan, in New Zealand, in Australia, all over the globe, in Europe. We have the same problem. And the thing that happens once, these young people who just graduate from college, they go out and they live their shock of their lives that, oh, I don't understand anything of what's happening around me. I think finance is hard. I think accounting is hard. And now, funny enough, I mentor a couple of young entrepreneurs, and I see them like scared from finance. And when I explain it to them in simple terms, they say, oh, this is simple. But the question, John, why education system still failing us?
Mehmet, that is absolutely, you're spot on. I'm totally in agreement with you, and very eloquently put. Yeah, you know, um, we should teach these things early on, because there's so many predatory practices out there too that young people then aren't aware of. One is predatory lending, like credit cards. Immediately somebody gets a credit card and it's like, whoopee, I can start spending, and they don't realize that all of a sudden they're $10,000 in debt, and the interest rate on that credit card is 24%, and suddenly they have this, dinosaur to feed each month, and it really puts you behind the eight ball. And people don't understand the basics of lending and borrowing, and when it's a great tool to use and when it's actually not. Buying assets, income producing assets, and using leverage and lending to do that, using debt, it can be very, very powerful. But to just use your credit card to go on a cruise, or go out to eat a whole bunch of times or something like that, and have nothing to show for it, no asset to show for it, is a terrible thing to do. And people don't understand the difference. There's that great book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that kind of lays that out, and can be really illuminating for folks that, buy income producing assets like rental properties, or stocks with a dividend, or bonds, those type of things that are giving you an income stream off of the money you spent, so that your money's working for you 24/7 while you sleep. Um, the other part of predatory practices that people don't really understand is marketing. And marketing is basically creating manufactured desires. You look at something, it's like, oh my God, I have to have it, because there's a lot of intense psychology that goes into the advertising and marketing, and people are prey to that if we don't have critical thinking skills to say, wait a minute, that really seems enticing, like the sirens on the rocks that Ulysses had to avoid, but I'm not going to go there because that's going to put me in debt. And trying to stay out of debt so that you can actually save some money to put into investments, to use as a dry powder to start a company as an entrepreneur. That's really where we want to go. And they don't teach those kind of things in school. They should really focus on that life skills in high school and certainly in college. We used to have courses. Well, we used to have like wood shop and metal shop where people would learn how to use their hands and things. They got rid of all that because everybody had to be on a program to go to college. We used to have home economics where people would learn how to run a household because there is a enterprise component to our lives. As soon as, like you say, we get out of school, and it's a shock that all of a sudden we have to run our lives like a mini enterprise. How much money's coming in, how much we spend, how much is left over at the end of the month, what our balance sheet looks like, what assets we're buying, how we're financing those assets with debt and equity, our money and our borrowing, and how to use those things smartly to generate a bunch of assets that are going to give us income streams so that we don't have to rely only on our salary, and things, so that we can feel more safe in life. Then we can negotiate on better terms for ourselves because we don't have to worry, oh my God, if I lose this job, how am I going to pay the rent next month? It's like, no, I have some money coming in from my income streams from smart investments I've made. And so now I can go in and say, hey, I need a raise in order to do this job, or I'm going to quit and go find a better job. And I can survive for 3 months while I look for that better job. And having that kind of confidence allows us to negotiate better and to have better outcomes for ourselves. So yeah, financial literacy is absolutely key. Right.
Absolutely, John. Well, now, one of the things that I'm interested to hear from you, I was doing my research and I figured out that, you know, you have reached around 30,000 students worldwide. Like any inspiring and surprising success stories that you can share with us from your students?
Oh, absolutely. Well, the most one inspiring story is for me. I mean, my MBA ASAP courses have had well over 30,000 students, and now I've had them in 167 countries. So I have students in Dubai, I have students in Japan, I have students throughout Europe, South America, Madagascar, the Maldives, everywhere. I just got my first student in Yemen. So hi to you. I mean, just everywhere. It's just amazing. I think there's only, it varies and keeps changing, but only a little bit over 200, maybe between 195 and 205 countries. So 167 countries covering most of the world. And for me to touch with all those people and to understand, like you said, that people all over the world are aspiring to be better for their lives under sort of capitalist rules where, if we can build it and we can sell it, we can have a wonderful life for us and for our families and create generational wealth and really have an impact in the world, and how satisfying that is. And to see that is a shared vision across the globe has been just incredibly satisfying for me. And I have a lot of testimonials from students that, where they say that the classes have been great. It's really helped them in their career. It's helped them to have the confidence to start businesses and to create other income streams, like have, side hustles. So they say that the average millionaire has 7 income streams. They don't rely on just one, job or something like that. They have real estate, income producing properties, and they have stocks, and they have bonds, and they have some online businesses, which nowadays are incredibly easy to form. You can get a website and get an email list for free and just start marketing products and things. And everyone should be doing that. And like Andy Warhol said, in the future, everybody will be famous for 15 minutes. Well, nowadays we can actually do that. We have, there's no gatekeepers anymore for creating digital products. You can create a song and download it and put it on TikTok and or you can create a book, or you can create videos, all kinds of things where you can uh, be a knowledge worker and not have to trade your time for money, but use the products, of your mind, thinking products. So it's a wonderful time to be doing this.
Let me ask you this before I jump to the other question. How AI is shifting this, John, do you
Oh,
think?
incredible, Mohammed. I mean, it's just unbelievable. The artificial intelligence tools that I always, joke around and kid people that during my entrepreneurial journey, first of all, I wanted to get rid of bosses, and I did that a long time ago. And then I decided, being a boss is also hard too. I stopped having partners because partnerships can work and sometimes they don't work. I stopped having employees because employees, first of all, it's a burden because you feel responsible for them and their families, and you have to pay them, going forward forever. Now I like to use consultants, if anything, and create mosaics of talent that I use for particular projects. So I got rid of employees, got rid of partners. I got rid of bosses. I got rid of big customers because I didn't want to have to be enthralled to one or two big customers that if I lost them, the revenue of the company would collapse. So now I have lots of little customers, and developed over time organically my approach towards a business model where it's just me and the robots. That's what I basically say, because everything that I do is automated. I find what I can do with automation, and you can create sales funnels. You can get in the top of the funnel with paid ads and social media, and then have a sales funnel through, webinars and email drip campaigns, and all that stuff can be automated right up to the paywall, and that's automated. And then the product can be videos and audio and PDFs and books, and all of that can be digitally downloaded. So the whole process can be automated. And so now, as AI comes into the picture over the last, well, since ChatGPT in November of 22, right, just blew everybody's mind. Unbelievable. Right now, I am launching in the next week here, I think. I've been working on it for about 6 months with this, AI based firm, a AI engine driven negotiations course that's based on my negotiations course and content. And it's strictly AI, an avatar of me. So it's me rendered in video in real time, speaking with my lips moving, in my voice, because 11 labs and these other ones have these voice synthesis now. That's just incredible. And interacting with students on like about 15 seconds back and forth on negotiations topics, with lots of role playing and going over practice sessions to get better at negotiations, using my whole program for how to be a better negotiator. And it speaks and understands in 120 languages. So until now, all of my courses have been in English, and English has become, the second language of the world. And so lots of people understand English all over the world, but lots of people don't. And lots of people would rather than listening to things in their second language work in their first language. So I'm very excited about this. And it's an AI tool that works one-on-one with students interactively, finds out what they know and what they don't know about negotiations as it goes forward, and fills in those gaps. So the foundations are really set before we move up into higher and higher uh, nuanced, learning. And so that type of learning is incredibly good from a pedagogical standpoint, and it's all based on AI. And so I'm very excited to launch that course. I'm also translating my other courses. Right now, I'm starting with Spanish and Hindi, and because more than 30% of my students have been in India or in India. Only 15% of the U.S. where I am. I thought I'd be more U.S. centric, but so Hindi's a big, Spanish is a big language for me. And using these tools, HeyGen is the one I'm using for this, but it actually changes my lip movements to look lip sync when I'm speaking Spanish, when I'm speaking Hindi, and it's in my voice. It's recorded my voice and uses my voice phonemes, and I've seen the results. And in the next few weeks, I'll be releasing those too. And the results are absolutely remarkable. Now, I also use AI to help me with content creation. I use a tool now called Notebook LM, which is from Google, which is incredible. I can upload a PDF of one of my books, and then it digests that, and you can put up all kinds of and make these mini, chatbot GBT things using any type of only the content that you want to extract from. I just put up one PDF of my book, and it can create what they call a deep dive, which is a conversation between two people, a man and a woman. It doesn't sound like synthesized voices anymore, and they're talking about my content, and I'm like, this sounds more eloquent and succinctly, distilled of my content than I could even say of my own stuff. And it's remarkable. And so then I can take that. It's like, it'll make like a 20-minute, conversation on content. And then I put it into a tool, say like Pictory or something, that actually first I go into Otter and I make a text of that audio, take that text, put it in the Pictory, that goes and looks at the text for keywords, and then goes and finds stock footage, video footage that represents those keywords, that what's going on in it, and creates a video of that content. And then I put that video with the audio that was made by Notebook LM, and I have content that's created all with AI derived from my content that I wrote. I mean, so I'm using these tools constantly, and they keep evolving. Every week there's something new, Mamit, and I'm just blown away. And it's just always so. I mean, we're living like William Gibson said. The future is here. It's just not evenly distributed. I mean, if you get you know, turned on to these tools and you start using them, oh my gosh. And it's just remarkable. So it's just a thrilling time to be alive. And now with Deep Sea coming out and really
Oh,
starting to, I think that's it's like one of those Sputnik moments where it's going to make everybody else work harder. And plus it's open source so people can see how it was done so they can start applying those techniques. And that's going to make things go even faster. It's just a accelerated development time. And who knows where we're going to end up, but it's absolutely thrilling and exciting, for me.
absolutely, it's exciting. And you mentioned Notebook LM and all these tools. So people they ask me, "Are you using all of these? Why you need?" I said, "Yeah, because each time I immerse myself in these AI tools, I discover a lot. And honestly, I started to feel myself like a Superman or Iron Man, whatever you want to call me, right? Because all of a sudden, yeah, like I'm a guy who's curious about knowledge, like yourself, John. Like, okay, I need to learn more about finance. I need to learn more about this. And now all of a sudden, I ask ChatGPT or I ask Claude or I ask, just a story because of Notebook LM, which blew my mind. So what I did, so I have a newsletter that I post on LinkedIn every Sunday. So just out of curiosity, I said, let me give it to Notebook LM and see what it will come up with. And I was mind blown how the conversation between the two characters there went. Like, wow, like I didn't even think about it this way. So it's really fantastic. Now, John, I want to ask you something because we're talking about money and all this. So you've raised capital yourself. You've taken companies public. You run a hedge fund. What are like some of the most counterintuitive, I would say, lessons you've learned about finance?
Well, I think the fundamental lesson is that uh, you want to have income producing assets, and you want to invest in income producing assets. And then how do you value those assets? So basically, the way that it's present value calculations, and it's very simple. You take if an asset, say a bond or a rental property, where you're getting rent each month, how much is that income each year, say, and going into the future? And each year you have to discount that income a little bit more, right? Because a dollar today is worth more than a dollar 5 years from now, right? Because you could put that dollar today, say, into the bank or an investment, and say, just for easy math, it was making 10% interest on that money. Well, then next year it would be worth a dollar 10. The year after that, it'd be worth a dollar 21 because you're actually getting interest on the interest that you had from the year before too. And that's the magic of compounding, and understanding how compound interest works to your benefit is another big revelation. And so you take all of those into the future that are being discounted, and then you add them all up, and that is basically the value of that asset. And so then the trick becomes, well, what's the discount rate you use to reduce each of those, subsequent years, to bring it back to that present value, to add them all up? And that's called the discount rate. And once you decide that, then you can see, is this income stream worth the price of that asset? And how much should I pay for this rental property? Or how much should I pay for this stock or this bond? And then you can start to make those decisions. And when you come across good deals, then you can do it. And then the next step is called net present value, where you say, okay, say you're going to build a project and you expect it's going to make this much of money into the future, right? Going into the future. And then you bring it back to the present value and you say, okay, that present value now, say, is $1 million. And Now, but the project is going to cost you $1.5 million to construct, to make. Is it a good deal? No, because it's going to cost you more than the present value of those future cash flows. And so that is considered a bad deal. Don't do that deal. But if it's, say, it's going to cost you $500,000 to make this project, and the present value of those future cash flows that that project is going to generate is $1 million, then you have $500,000 on top of the 500 that you're going to use to make the project. That's going to be your profit. That's a good deal to make. So you start using these quantitative decision-making tools to make decisions about what's a good investment, what's a bad investment, what's a good project to undertake, what's a not a good project to undertake. And I think that's really the key kind of things to understand discounting cash flows and the present value of money.
Great. Now, I want to ask you now from a investor perspective, little bit, and you know, I know like some of the founders would be curious to know, like, what are some of the common traits you look into the founders and you say, okay, these guys, are up to something interesting, and I think they will be able to build successful companies.
Well, that's a great question, Mohammed. That's actually the foundational thing, right? I mean, at the end of the day, when you're investing in a company, and I do a bunch of angel investing now, and besides um, running a hedge fund, my private hedge fund basically is, I like the public markets because of liquidity, that I can get the money in and out, and the market is a price discovery mechanism, right? It's basically a all day long, people making their guesses about the future value of those cash flows of a company, and that's what the price of the company is. And so we use the wisdom of crowds, that all of those different guesses that make that auction, the bid and ask prices and what we settle on, that wisdom of everybody is a very accurate price. So I love the public markets for those reasons. I also love private markets, like investing in startup companies, because those companies can really make the big 10x, 10 times returns and more. And I like to uncover those kind of things. So in those kind of instances, we're always betting on the horse, right? We're betting on the jockey, not the horse. We're betting on the manager, the leader,
Absolutely.
the person with the vision. So you're looking to see, is this person really going to be able to do it? Because at the end of the day, ideas are cheap. It's execution that matters, and execution is key. So I look for, a lot of times, people say, like, why did that guy, I pitched to him and he said, come back to me when you're starting your second company. And why does he want to do that? Because I have this great idea. And I was like, well, that investor wants to make sure that you learn the lessons from that first time you do it about why it didn't go right. And then once you learn those lessons, then come back. You want somebody with experience, somebody where it's not their first rodeo. They've done this before, and they've had success or they've had failures, but they learn from, why did that thing fail? Well, it failed because of this, that, and that, and you're not going to repeat those failures. So you have that experience, and that experience is priceless. Failures can be much more of a learning experience than a success, because when you do having a success, you think, I'm a genius, I know everything, I can do this, and then you set yourself up for a catastrophic failure. If you failed, you start to question, what did I do wrong? What's wrong with my approach? How did I do this? And that type of introspection really makes for a toughened entrepreneur that's really going to make it work. And then also, you're looking for where technologies are going to converge and what's going to be the thing. And is this person going to be at the right spot at the right time? Because a lot of it is timing and luck. And is this investment going to increase my luck surface, where I can actually, maybe this might happen even in spite of some failures or stumbling around, because a startup is going to have those things. So yeah, it's always about looking at the personality of the entrepreneur and seeing, is this person wizened and sort of toughened by having a couple of failures under their belt, or maybe a real success, and this is another company where they know they can win in a place, or is this somebody just starting out? And if they're just starting out, they better be super brilliant and super tough and really willing to work like crazy, because that's what it's going to take. And so you're making those assessments, and so it's a lot of a judgment on personality.
Absolutely. Now, talking about also the work you do from education perspective. Um, one, I think, people get a little bit kind into analysis paralysis. Would
Yeah.
I be, especially if they're starting a business, like getting the leadership skills and getting, the ability to really manage the business, right? And part of it is, you know, knowing how to communicate to people. Part of it is, maybe sometimes finding your co-mate or co-founder. Um, so I hear a lot from people, John, like they say, oh, but this is, I like to be focused on one part of the things. I need to leave the other part for others. Now, part of you do with the MBA ASAP is trying to get, this bite-sized, knowledge to us. And so being able to understand the whole. Why do you think a lot of us still get this kind of, no, I want to be like just specialize in this, I don't need to be getting into, I hear it by the way a lot, I'm not into sales, I'm not into marketing, I'm not into leadership. So how we can together, and if you can tell me, John, we can, let's say, debunk this myth from your experience, of course.
Thanks, Moment. And it is a debunking of that myth. And in my personal experience, what I've found is, and why I shy away from having partners now, besides the personalities, and when things start to make money, people get funny sometimes, and so you run into these conflicts. That's one thing. But the other thing is, I've realized in my own life. First of all, I just want Naval Ravikant, who I love, said, if you can build and you can sell, you are unstoppable. And that's really, I think, so insightful. And where we want to be is be able to build and also to be able to sell. And a lot of people shy away from marketing and sales and think that's kind of distasteful. I don't want to be like a used car salesman or something, hawking my wares and stuff like that. I just want to build things, and I want the integrity of the purity of that. And I'll leave those other things to other people. That is a recipe for failure, I think. And because what I found is any part of the business, and this is another reason why I like that now I'm basically a solopreneur, and I have some human contractors that I work with and freelancers, but it's mostly me and the robots. It's me and automation. It's me and AI. And AI is incredible power tools. Like when you think of a chainsaw as being faster than trying to saw through the wood, AI is like that kind of tool on steroids. It gives us, like you say, it gives us this feeling of, we can do so much more because we have these incredible tools at our disposal. So every time that I've had partners, or I delegate any part of my business enterprises to anyone else, and I stop thinking about that side of my understanding of that business, I found it atrophies. I no longer understand how the marketing is going on. I no longer understand how the accounting is happening. I no longer understand whatever it is. I really now know that I have to be, and I'm interested at bottom. Every part of business is fascinating. If you're not fascinated by every part of business, then maybe that's not what you should be doing, because it's all fascinating. And nowadays it's all kind of gamified, because you can see immediately if your idea works or not, because you can see, did somebody buy things off of that advertisement, or is somebody buy things off of this new feature I added, or how are our social media posts doing? And you can see right away how things are going. So you get excited. It's like these little dopamine rushes when you see, oh, wow, a whole bunch of people have downloaded this or that, or listened to my podcast, or read my article, whatever it is. That is exciting for us and spurs us on to do more. And so I really think that we should do every aspect of business. And especially if you're a technical person and you can build stuff, if you have computer skills or whatever, mechanical engineering, you can build stuff. You don't need a business person. Don't get it. Don't just go get a partner that is a business person because you're too lazy to learn the business things. Business skills are easy. Like you said, Mom, finance, there's nothing fancy about that, or accounting. You can learn those. Anyone can learn those things. It's shrouded in buzzwords because people want to keep it kind of seeming like it's something that's too complicated for people, because there's that guild mentality where then they can control that type of aspect of things. But if you can break through that, you'll realize, oh, that's simple. It makes sense. It's common sense. None of it is like esoteric. It's all absolutely common sense. Otherwise, it wouldn't be practical, right? And everybody uses it. So it has to be relatively simple. So learning those skills, if you can build and you can sell, and if selling is something you find distasteful, figure out how to make it interesting to yourself, because that's the part that is really important. You're not building things that you think are something that you really like, and oh, customers and the world, the audience just doesn't understand it yet. Someday they will. You have to separate your ego from what you build and try to build things that people actually want and are interested in. And it may not be, it probably isn't going to be the first thing that you build. That's why you build a minimal viable product and then iterate to find out when you get that product market fit and get an audience that actually is willing to part with their hard-earned money for what you've built because it satisfies some sort of need. Either it's relieving some pain they have, or it's giving them some delight.
Absolutely. You touch on a couple of points, John, which I really liked. So the first thing about yourself being a solopreneur, and maybe some of the people will be surprised, but this is the trend. I see it now currently. And even, Sam Altman, he mentioned also like about the one person company, right? Which gonna be like kind of a norm. And to your point also about how you can utilize, now we're going to have the agents also as well, the AI agents that will help us a lot doing a lot of the repetitive tasks. And just a small like story, like I used to tell people, I can't tell them about the accounting stuff. I said, hey, I'm sure like at the end of each academic year when you were at school, you used to get some money, right? So to spend the summer. Yeah, they say yes. I said, I'm sure like you used to put, okay, so this is the revenue. This is how we're gonna spend it. And then every day you go and find out like how much you still have. And this is your cash flow. I said, yeah, yeah. So see, accounting. So accounting starts even when we are kids at school, and we're counting, the money that our parents or, I mean, like friends of parents who used to give us. And it's not rocket science. I think we overcomplicate things sometimes. And I'm happy, John, you know, with all the things you've done. And I want to ask you, because you touched about writing the books, but 60 books, it's it's not like something small to talk about. And you mentioned about it, but uh there must also be a kind of a secret sauce for you for distilling complex concept into these actionable insights. I wanted to re-highlight this again, if you don't mind.
Oh yeah, thank you. Well, I sort of live by the adage that if you're underthinking, read. And I think reading is a superpower. Look at the books. I read all the time. Consuming knowledge is just the best way to get ideas and to get into other people's minds, and really helpful. So if you're underthinking, read. If you're overthinking, write. And that's part of it, is like when you have all these ideas jumbling around in your head, which I have all the time, I really need to write them down. And I found that writing is very hard to do. It's so hard. But I think the hard way is basically the right way a lot of times. And so writing your ideas down, you suddenly discover you think you understand your ideas, you think they're clear in your mind, but when you start to try to write them down, you realize I really don't have a clear idea about that. And so writing is the craft of clarifying those ideas. And like you say, reducing them, distilling them to something clear that you understand, so that you can present to other people so they can understand these ideas too. And the fact of communicating with others is just so satisfying, that writing and then disseminating that writing and seeing people actually read it is an incredibly satisfying thing. So it looks like a lot of books, but when you think about like a snowstorm, right? It's this little flake on flake on flake on flake, and then suddenly you have 6 feet of snow. And that's what's happened. We tend to underestimate. We tend to overestimate what we can do in a year. We make plans. We say, "Well, I'm going to do this in a year," and we usually never accomplish what we think. And we tend to really underestimate what we can do in a decade. And so I've been writing for maybe 20 years now, as a practice, a habit, and habits are what we do every day. And if I can write 500 words a day that I'm happy with, well, 500 words every day. It's 1,000 words every 2 days. Maybe a book might be, a short book could be 30,000 words. So that's 30 days times it took 2 days to write the 1,000, 60 days. Every 2 months, I can have a book. And when you start thinking in decades, that's 6 books a year. 10 years is 60 books. And so it's not that challenging to do if you break it down into, I'm going to do this every day. If you think about, I want to write 60 books, how am I going to do that? That's just too insurmountable of a task. Well, you have to break it down into those small everyday tasks. And then those are what adds up. And over time in my life, my experience, I've learn to understand that it's the little things that we do consistently that build up to make big things. It's like, how do you eat an elephant? Well, one bite at a time. That old story. I love that, Annie Lamott's book, Bird by Bird. And she wrote that and said that, it was because when she was young, her older brother was sitting at the table at their house and he had to write a report for school on birds. And he had 3 months to do it. And it was the night before it was due. And he hadn't done it. He had procrastinated and he was there almost in tears. And, he had these books on birds and had the paper there and all. And it's like, how am I going to write this paper? And her dad came down and put his arm around his shoulder and said, bird by bird, buddy, just take it bird by bird. And that's the thing, break it down. Don't think of the giant task of like, oh my gosh, this is insurmountable. What's the next step? You don't have to see the whole staircase if you can just see the next step and just take those steps. And I found that type of habitual routine type of thing works for me. There's a H.L. Mencken, the great writer, they asked him, well, how do you get inspired? When does inspiration strike? And he said, inspiration strikes every day at 9 a.m. when I sit down at my desk. Like it's a job, you got to do it. Jerry Seinfeld, the great comedian, he was like, he said, I started out, I would write jokes for, a couple in an hour a day and stuff like that. And then one day I was coming back in New York from lunch and I saw these construction workers and they got done with their lunch and they started, just slowly going back to work, determined. And I said, that's the key. I have to be like those guys. In the afternoon, when I don't want to do it, I just have to go back, got to go back to work and do more writing. That's the kind of, attitude that I found has really helped me to, when I don't want to do it, that's when I really need to do it. And that's when I'm going to move the needle.
Absolutely. Fantastic advice, John. And I love, like by 9 a.m., the inspiration starts. So absolutely. Like this is the way, I motivated myself, also as well, because um whenever I feel like I'm procrastinating on something, so the way I do it is just, and the famous book, The Seven Habits, of Success,
Great.
this is, yeah. So it's a great book by Harvey.
Even
And yeah. So and every time, there's a lot of books that, we can advise people to read. But as you said, the more you read, the more you discover. And maybe I'm a little bit biased. For me, the podcast, talking to people like yourself, John, like was absolutely fantastic opportunity to learn. And of course, I used to listen to podcasts and I still do. So if you can find the time to have a quiet place to read, you can listen to podcasts also as well, which is a great way to learn from the great uh, minds, I would say.
absolutely.
John, I'm enjoying, and I think we're gonna have to do a part two of this episode too, with you. But before we wrap up, I just want you to leave us with like kind of final words of wisdom and tell people where they can find more about the work you have done.
Oh, thanks so much. And Mahmet, I just wanted to say it's been an absolute pleasure. And like you say, speaking to people like you, it's an inspiration to me. And I love the work you do, doing this, is you're inspiring so many people. And
Hopefully.
well, and I'm sure, you are. And even just, the little inflection points that if somebody grabs one thing that just sort of helps them in one little bit, like a ship going across the Pacific Ocean, if it changes by half a degree, its navigation, it's going to go to a completely different place. And so these small inflection points can really be super meaningful over the long time. Like I said, decades in people's lives. So it can really make a huge difference. So thank you. You're doing wonderful work, and it's just great. And as far as where people can find me, I'm on all social media and everything else, but my website's the best place, MBA ASAP.com. And that's the place you can sign up for my email list and get a free course that's done over 4 emails that just starts out, and you can sign up for my course. And once you get on my email list, just email me, and I answer all emails and correspondence. So I love to talk with everyone. So yeah, really appreciate it. Look forward to anybody asking me any questions.
Great. Thank you very much, John. And for the audience, you don't need to look around. I'm going to put a link in the show notes if you're listening on your favorite podcasting app. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you will find it in the description. John, just a small thing about what you said. This is what it seems we have a lot of synergies actually, because people ask me why you do it. I tell the story and I say I started it out of a curiosity myself. Can I do it? What's my aim? Okay, my aim is to inspire, to educate someone. And they ask me, okay, what's your goal? Like I said, of course, I have ambitions. I want to make it like big, right? But I said, look, when I started, I knew that it would not be a overnight success, right? But I said, if I see one person in this world that listened, watched, whatever, or maybe even before I did the podcast, read an article that I write and get, something out of it. I said, I feel like I fulfilled partially my mission. And this is, people ask me, oh, how come you have been doing so much episodes and posting so much? I said, because, yeah, I've seen people coming and telling me, hey, like, by the way, we listened to this episode, we liked, what the guest said, or we learned a lot from the guest. I said, oh, good. Like, mission accomplished. For me, this is great. So thank you also, John, for you, because you are part of this journey. I'm trying to leave a legacy. I'm trying to inspire as much people as we can. And of course, I cannot do it by myself. I need people like you, John. And thank you very much for being my guest here today. And this is for the audience. If you just discovered this podcast by luck, thank you for passing by. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did so, please share it with your friends and colleagues. And of course, don't forget to subscribe and give us the thumbs up. And if you are one of the people who keeps coming back, thank you very much. With your support, with all what you are doing in the background, we managed for the first time since 2 years. Now we are entering the 2 top 100 charts simultaneously in multiple countries. You managed to make the podcast in the top 40 most listened podcasts in Dubai, ranking at the number 14. So thank you very much for this. Still, we are like trying to, you know, improve ourselves, get the things done in a better way. But thanks you for all your support. And as I say always, thank you for tuning in. We will be again in a new episode very soon. Thank you. Bye bye.
Hit that subscribe button, share the show with your tech-savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.